Hello everybody, I'm going to feature Guys versus IG Industrial Genomics today, and I will be particularly focusing on hidden information, this concept of hidden information in this game, and how the court can use it to its advantage by masquerading weakness as strength. First turn, IG performs install, upgrade, and card on HQ, ice on HQ, followed by drawing a card. So immediately, in my mind, what I think is there's an Enderun on HQ, and that's followed by a Caprice on HQ. This is not the case. It was a Yagura on HQ followed by a Chrysium Grid. Had I known this, I would have played Sure Gamble and ran into HQ second click to trash the Chrysium Grid to enable my siphons later on. Of course, I didn't do this, and as you are about to see, I'm going to pay very dearly for it. In the meantime, I slowly set up. I would really have liked a security testing early on here. All I got was a Desperado, which wasn't very good. Desperado's great, don't get me wrong, but I need to start making money before he ices up Archives with Crick. You can be sure that IG runs Crick. So here he continues icing up. I did see an Architect on R&D, and I thought the Architect was on R&D. Iced up on R&D because that's what he did on his second turn, I believe. But the ice on R&D wasn't an Architect. It was another Yagura. So as I'm going to pay dearly for that as well, because I did draw into a crowbar, but I'm not using it just yet. I run through Archives and I see a Future Perfect. He dumped the Future Perfect in Archives thinking I wouldn't run Archives, and that's a huge mistake because I immediately steal the Future Perfect and place myself in a very good position. Now, I also blindly install a Crescentus, which is probably a bad idea, not knowing what sort of ice I'm going to encounter, because it's going to take up memory later on down the road. He then installs a Crick on Archives, followed by a Shell Corp on HQ, which doubly confirms my suspicion that there's a Caprice on HQ. He wouldn't do a Shell Corp on HQ if there wasn't a Caprice protecting it, right? Well, I'm completely wrong. All that's on HQ is an Architect into Yagura. Two eyes which I can easily pass through if I want to. But I'm not, because I'm afraid of that Caprice. I'm afraid of an Enderun. I'm afraid of a Code Gate. So I'm running R&D thinking there's no Code Gate there, but I get hit by a Yagura in the face. The Yagura snipes off my same old thing. I see one card, it's a shock, it snipes off my Corona. This is probably the start of my fall. Things are going to go downhill very rapidly from here on out, especially with a Cerebral Static on the table. Now that really screws guys over. At least I do have some other form of card draw in the form of Earthrise, but this is definitely not going to look good for me very soon. As I continue drawing out with Earthrise, I finally find security testing, but it's too late. I know there's a Crick on Archives, and there's no free server for me to security test. He did Celeb Gift and showed me very few agendas in his hand. What you actually didn't know was that he was actually protecting a Nisei Mark II in his hand the entire game. There was a Nisei Mark II in his hand since the beginning of the game, and I haven't seen it in any of his Celeb Gifts because he was trying to hide it from me. He was making very smart use of card draw to prevent me showing me the Nisei Mark II. He showed me NAPD, he showed me Future Perfect, but those are unappealing agendas to steal. And this is what really tricked me. I didn't expect that he was agenda flooded, but he actually was. So even though he's playing Celebrity Gift, it doesn't really come as a downside to him. In fact, I mistook the weakness of his hand. I thought his hand was very strong, and he was icing up HQ solely to protect me from playing Account Siphon, which is a very smart play, which anyone would make. I mean, logical play. But it's doubly smart on his part, because I wouldn't perform a legwork on his hand, even though that would be the right play, because there's a Nisei Mark II in his hand that I don't see. Instead, I run R&D, which seems much weaker. HQ seems way too strong right now, and yeah, I just don't think I can get through HQ. Because I know there's an Architect there, I know I have to pay at least 2 credits to get through that, and I don't want to. And don't forget that at this point, using the Home Invasion Breakers isn't that good because I'm not getting free draws off of it. I make 2 R&D runs because I do have a medium, and the first run I allow Yagura to fire. That was just to collect the medium token. At this point, I was very desperate to see an agenda because what I desperately needed was to turn off Cerebral Static. Seeing an agenda is the only way I can shut down Cerebral Static, and I desperately need to, simply because it's really killing me. Not only am I not getting any credits from my run-based economy, I'm not getting any cards either. He purges virus counters off medium. Very smart choice. That really screws me over again. I security test the remote at this point. As long as it's not a code gate, I should be able to get through for my security test. Between Dirty Laundry and security test, I should hopefully get enough credits to get me back in the game. But of course, it's a code gate. And what better code gate than an end the run code gate? Lotus Field stops me cold. I do not get any returns. So he's very rich. I'm dirt poor. His shell corp is taking turn after turn, and I haven't bothered running HQ a single time. This is a huge mistake. I can tell you what's on HQ now. Wall of Thorns, Architect, Yagura. My time to run HQ has passed. I can't break Wall of Thorns now. And as I said, it's not a Caprice guarding HQ. I should be able to easily trash the shell corp, but I can't because I'm too scared. I'm afraid of Caprice Nisei. I'm afraid of all the nasty eyes that's on HQ. I sound like I'm making a speech right now. I'm not doing a commentary. I'm just making a speech on how completely afraid I am, which guys doesn't really see. You look at his avatar on the card and he's like, okay, this confident guy wearing such a cool suit and everything. No, deep down he's afraid. He's afraid of net damage. He's afraid of running archives to turn cards over because he knows there are shocks in them. And he doesn't want to get hit by them. Not at all. I installed Crowbar finally, and I do muster the courage to run R&D. The plan here is pretty clear. Make my money back from the pop-up windows, which I paid through, using security testing. A net loss of 2, a net gain of 3 between Desperado sec testing, and I take 1 net damage from Yagura. I do not access, but I gain a medium counter. Now I run again for real this time, sacking Crowbar so that he cannot trigger Yagura again, and I see 2 cards, one of which is a Cyberdex Virus Suite that costs 5 credits to trash. It took me so long to ponder over this, whether to trash it or not. I finally decided to, because otherwise my medium is rendered useless for the rest of the game. You can simply install the Cyberdex on R&D, can't do anything about it, my next medium run will be useless. But it doesn't matter. He just installs an upgrade on R&D, and there's the fear factor again. Is it a caprice? Even if it is, can I afford to trash it? It's +4 to trash. Can I win the side game? Is it worth it for me running through 2 pop-up windows, paying 2 credits, when I might not get a successful run off? In the meantime, he continues building up his servers, and gets an agenda going. That's the Nisei Mark II that has been in his hands since turn 1. Of course I didn't know it back then. I knew that it could be a Nisei Mark II, and I knew there was no way I could get through. If he had 2 code gates on the remote, he would stop me dead cold. If he had a big sentry on the remote, he would stop me too. What ice was on the remote? It was there was a Susano. There's a Lotus Field at the end. I'm not sure what the middle ice was. I forgot. I think I would have I wouldn't. I might have been able to get through if I installed the ferry and run the remote. Of course I didn't do that. Instead I went for the blind siphon on HQ, because at this point I saw the only way to win was to siphon him and pray for the love of heavens that he doesn't rest the Caprice against me. And if he does, that I would win the side game. 1 in 3 chance. But knowing that there's probably a Caprice on HQ and that I'm down to 1 credit after evading the net damage from Wall of Thorns, I decided to jack out. So he does score the Nisei in the end, and that makes my life a whole lot harder. It means that I cannot siphon him anymore. I cannot guarantee siphons. And the upgrade is still there. It's still instilling lots of fear in me. And the celebrity gift just makes it worse. I see more shocks now. I know that running archives isn't an option, yet it's so painful. +4 to trash an upgrade. I can't deny his shell corp by now. I have to let his money engine go, and that probably is another huge mistake. Usually with my guys deck, my main mode of winning is credit control. I control his credits through account siphon, and I deny all his money assets. But I can't do that. Between IG's ability and Shell Corp, it's just not gonna happen. Again, I can't afford to trash Shell Corp without running archives first, and I really don't want to run archives because I know that there are at least 2, if not 3 shocks in there. But perhaps I have to. I do have a route out though. A backup plan. A line of defense. I'm gonna let him score this second agenda, because it turns out to be an NAPD. Don't have to worry too much about it. I'm gonna contest that last agenda in the remote. And with drive-by, it's going to happen, unless he is intuitive enough to pre-res the Caprice on the remote. By now, I'm confident that I can get through his remote easily. Between Ferry, Corroder, and Blue Cerberus, I can run through his remote twice, probably. Turns out that's not the case because Fairy can only break Susanoo once. But in any case, what I can do is to drive by the Caprice on remote and then run twice, sacking the Nisei token one time and fetching the agenda the other time. That was my plan. Everything all in on running that remote to deny him that final winning agenda, which is probably going to be the future perfect. So in the meantime, I'm just going to gain credits and slowly draw cards because I know I do have a lock on his remote. The centrals are out of the question right now. All three of them have upgrades on them, so I definitely cannot contest that. It's down to the remote. If he pre-reses the upgrade on the remote, it's game over for me. I can only hope that he doesn't do so. In the meantime, I do draw into a Siphon, and it seems like this is an opportune time to blind Siphon. So I break through the Wall of Thorns, and I see an Architect. As expected, final card, Yagura. I asked him whether he wants to res the Caprice, he denies. So that's not a Caprice on HQ. My fears were indeed unfounded. It turns out to be a Chrysium Grid, as I mentioned earlier, and that stops the Siphon dead cold. I do trash the Chrysium Grid for 12 credits. Except that I don't have 12 credits, I can't trash the... But I do fetch a Hades Shard and that Hades Fragment, and that actually brings me to match point as well. So it's not all that bad. He would have scored the Hades next turn probably. So it was a blessing in disguise that I didn't get the Siphon off because I got 3 agenda points instead, and that was pretty good too. He gets a Jackson Howard off and begins drawing for his final agenda, it seems, and perhaps another copy of Caprice Nisei to secure his remote. I wonder how confident he is in his defense of the remote. In the meantime, I do get my second link up, and that allows me to play another copy of Shiv to boost up the strength of all my breakers. And now he gets the upgrade on the remote. As I prepare to drive it by, he reses the bad news. It's an off the grid. Who the hell plays off the grid? IG. Well, this guy does, and it's a pretty smart choice. I'm deadlocked. I cannot drive by the off the grid. I cannot trash it. I can't run the remote. I can't lock him anymore. This is worse than a Caprice Nisei. At least with Caprice, if he pre-reses it, I could still win if I run the Caprice remote twice and win the side games 2 times in a row. Unlikely, but possible. Right now, it's just hard. You cannot enter this server, and that hurts. So the only way I can see myself winning is to run Archives, flip over all the cards, so that I can actually run HQ to trash Chrysium Grid. Of course, there's a Caprice guarding Archives. Archives is not that heavily defended, although I do have to sack the crowbar in order to break the crick. That was pretty painful. And then we play the side game on Caprice Nisei, and I lose, of course. So this means that I do not get to flip the cards over in Archives, which means I cannot trash the Chrysium on HQ because I'm poor, which means I cannot run the remote. And now I have 1 turn left to win because he double advances the 5 advance agenda. So HQ is impenetrable, Archives is guarded by Caprice, remote is unrunnable, R&D turns out to be the best avenue for me once again, this time without the medium. I can only hope that I top deck a winning agenda. But of course, Caprice Nisei says no. So I run Caprice and I hope to win the side game. I lose. I get kicked out. I have 2 clicks left. He has 1 Nisei Mark II token. So there's no other way to win. I can't run Archives for the win. So the only way to win right now is to run R&D twice in a row. This time I need to trash a Caprice, win the side game. I bid 1 and that fails. And so I call GG because with my last click, no matter what I do, he can just sack the Nisei Mark II token to prevent me from running, and that will allow him to score the winning agenda, which he jolly well does. If there's one way to summarize this game, it's as such. The unknown information that the Corp threatened was my downfall this game. HQ aggression should have been why I applied. In order to clear the Chrysium from HQ early, in order to activate Siphon at the earliest opportunity. HQ was his weakness because he relied on HQ defense to get off the grid going, and HQ was my strength because I had account Siphon. But by not capitalizing on this, I gave him the free win. Because I was too fearful, of the cards on HQ, particularly Caprice Nice. I was playing way too cautiously. As a criminal, I should be face checking a lot more. Back in the good old days, I played very aggressively with Gabriel Santiago, but now it seems like I'm just too afraid of any ice that might pop up. Yagura, Architect, you name it, I'm afraid. And that's not the way to play a criminal at all. I seem to have lost my criminal mojo, and this game, it clearly showed. Also, I was very afraid of Crick. Not just of the contents in archives, which I never knew. There were lots of face down cards. Those were unknowns to me. What could they be? The worst part was I was afraid of Crick and the potential that Crick had. I was afraid that he could install some really powerful cards with Crick, ranging from Caprice Nice to Jackson Howard. There are lots of dangerous cards that Crick could install, and I was just avoiding it the entire way. Had I known that there weren't that many cards to be afraid of, I might have just ran archives repeatedly with security testing. That would have given me a lot more space to spend my clicks drawing cards, installing breakers, instead of clicking for credits, which I did half the game. Also, being able to flip archives at will is much better. I should have constantly flipped the cards in archives every now and then. Take a couple of net damage, it's no big deal. The main benefit is that I can now easily trash Caprice and Christian Grid elsewhere. You should always control the number of cards in archives as the runner against IG, unless you're running Imp, or unless you plan to win without trashing your opponent's cards at all, which in this game clearly doesn't work, because he has so many upgrades that kill any sort of plan. Cyberdeck's Rival Suite kills Medium, Crisium kills Siphon, and Off the Grid kills any chance at me running the remote. This powerful combination meant that once it got to the late game where he found every single upgrade, I just wasn't able to compete against him. And yeah, Archives was the root of all evil, and this game was no exception. Well, I hope you see how my opponent was able to fully leverage on the hidden information that the court possesses to gain an advantage over the runner. I think this was a very good demonstration of this, and I clearly suffered as a direct consequence. This was a very informative game, and I might give this IG deck a spin myself. It is pretty inspiring, and I think it's one of the strongest Glacier decks you can play at this point in time. Thanks for watching Happy Net Running. I'll see you around soon.